Bulawanaka and welcome to For the Record. I'm joined tonight by the European Union Ambassador to Fiji and the Pacific, Mr. Andrew Jacobs, as well as Sheehan Wilson from the Fiji TV newsroom, part of our panel, and our regular panelist, Joshua Tuere from the Fiji Sun. We're talking about the European Union's re-engagement with Fiji. There's been lots happening, a flurry of activity after what could be described as a vacuum of many years. So we'll get right into it. First of all, Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us on the show tonight.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, as I mentioned, for a long time there was a gap, a vacuum, so far as engagement between the EU and Fiji is concerned. And the majority of this was to do with aid projects, to do with development projects. What's the philosophy now? Is the EU trying to catch up on a lot of the work that was pending for so many years?
Well, I think it's not correct to say that there was a real vacuum. The European Union, was unable to provide aid directly through the government and government organisations, and those restrictions are now being lifted. But for the last few years, we have been providing quite a lot of support, particularly in the sugar belt. And we have around 150 million Fiji dollars invested in different projects which are ongoing or due to start. Where there is a difference now is that we are able to channel funds directly through the government since the return to parliamentary democracy. And I think we're able to engage much more thoroughly, much more constructively with the government, and we're very much looking forward to continuing this very, very close collaboration.
But is there lots to catch up on, though?
I think we are very keen to build on the work that we have been doing over the last few years, and we have been working primarily, if we're talking about the sugar belt, we've been working through non-governmental organizations, through international organizations like the SBC. What is different now is that we will be able to build on that support by working directly with the Fiji Sugar Corporation, with the Ministry of Sugar, and so on. So I think we have a very good base, but now we have the opportunity with a new program, with new funding becoming available for Fiji from the European Union to really, I think, go a long way and really provide support which is going to make a huge difference to people's lives.
Soon after elections, after the first parliament sitting, government convened a meeting with, of course, foreign representatives here in the country, just to identify areas that they're willing to assist in and,
yes,
and letting you know of our priorities. What has the EU pledged to help us with?
Well, we are discussing now with the authorities, with the Ministry of Finance and with the different line ministries, how we can best focus our support. We have a new allocation for Fiji of around $75 million Fiji dollars for the period until 2020. And we certainly need to respect the Fiji government's priorities. We don't want to be coming in here and providing support which is not, let's say, coherent with what the government's strategies and what the government's ambitions are. But it looks as though the bulk of those funds will go towards agriculture, let's say people's livelihoods in the rural areas, and sugar, working with the sugar sector. And then we're looking at providing support in governance to help to consolidate the return to democracy. And there we've been talking particularly to those involved in the justice sector, working on access to justice, which I know is a priority for the authorities as well. And we're very pleased that the government has been telling development partners what its priorities are and what they feel the different development partners should be concentrating on. Certainly we don't all want to be working in the same fields, and the government needs to show strong leadership, which it's doing, in order to avoid overlapping and in order to make sure that we are really responding to government's priorities. And I think it's all looking very good. We have the European Investment Bank also in town at the moment. They're looking at how the European Investment Bank is the European Union's development bank, if you like, and they are very keen to begin providing loans as well in different fields, and they're working on that at the moment. So we have our grant money, which, as I say, will focus, I think, primarily on agriculture, sugar and governance. But then there is also the European Investment Bank, which will make available loans in areas, I imagine, such as energy and water and so on. But things are progressing in terms of negotiations and discussion.
The EU had a bit to do in the lead up to the elections, obviously providing technical support to the elections office. What kind of support are you providing post-election in terms of governance specifically?
Well, we were very pleased to provide support before the elections, and we were pleased also to have experts in working in the framework of the multinational observer group, and I think that was a very successful exercise. And since the elections, we've concentrated our governance support really on the Parliament. Clearly, it's a young Parliament. The capacity building, I think, has been important. And we've been channeling funds through the UNDP, the United Nations Development Programme, together with other partners. I think New Zealand has been involved, Australia and Japan. And the UNDP has provided induction training for the members of Parliament. Recently, there was a trip to the United Kingdom by 4 parliamentarians, by the Speaker, by the Leader of the Opposition, by the Leader of the government in the House and the Secretary General. And we had a very good debriefing yesterday afternoon with 3 of the team who went to the UK. And I think that type of exposure, that type of, let's say, exchange of know-how, exchange of information is very valuable in terms of building capacity for the Parliament. I mean, we're very aware that for a lot of MPs, this is the first time sitting in a Parliament, and it's quite, let's say, a complex setup. It's a complex experience. So that is really where we're concentrating our governance support at the moment on capacity building for the Parliament.
With this assistance, what would the EU like to see at the end of the day, so far as Parliament specifically is concerned?
A strong Parliament. Fiji was a long time without a democratically elected government, and we will do everything we can to make sure that the Parliament performs as well as it can. We're very pleased with the way things have gone after the election. I think the Parliament was very rapidly constituted, and it's great to see democracy in action, and it's great to see it in action on television and listen on the radio, and certainly our support will concentrate on making sure that the Parliament and the other institutions that safeguard democracy will function as well as they possibly can.
All right, thank you, Ambassador. On that note, we will take a break. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the show. We're speaking with the European Union Ambassador to Fiji and the Pacific, Mr. Andrew Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, before the break, there was some discussion about the sugar sector. There's been a lot of focus for a lot of years on the industry. The European Union happens to be the largest, if not the sole buyer of Fiji sugar. Mm-hmm. Now, in 2017, the entire ballgame is going to change, so much so that we might end up without a market to sell our sugar to. The EU office in Fiji has been heavily involved in ensuring longevity and sustainability of the industry here. What about finding us a market post-2017?
Well, the European Union market will still be available post-2017. But in 2017, there will no longer be, I think it's towards the end of the year, there will no longer be the preferential market access and the preferential terms which are now available. The World Trade Organization has told the European Union that we can no longer favor, let's say, Pacific countries and those from Africa and the Caribbean in terms of providing them with let's say, a market in which they can have top prices for the sugar, because the WTO said that this was a distortion of the market. So in 2017, the European Union market for sugar will be a much more competitive place. There will be domestic European sugar producers who will be competing on the market on the same terms as Fiji. So it is going to become more competitive. It doesn't mean that the market is going to be closed in any way, but it does mean that in the run-up to 2017, Fiji sugar producers are going to have to become more competitive. They're going to have to, let's say, produce at lower cost. They're going to have to make sure that the production procedures are more streamlined in order to be able to compete in this market.
Mr. Ambassador, of course, the Fiji has had to embark on major reforms in the sugar industry itself post 2006. The European Union now, with the fact that in 2017 we no longer have the preferential access in terms of a market in the European Union, I understand the European Union has also made that commitment to the sugar industry with investment in the Sugar Research Institute. Could you talk about that a little bit?
I think the European Union support for the Sugar Research Institute of Fiji is designed to improve competitiveness. The Sugar Research Institute, SRIF, has developed more resistant strains of sugarcane, which can achieve higher yields, which go some way towards making Fiji sugar more competitive. And the concentration of our support in the next few years with the new money that we have on the table will really be aimed at making Fiji sugar even more competitive, so that so the producers are really prepared for the, let's say, open market in 2017. But we're very pleased with the cooperation with the Sugar Research Institute. I had the opportunity to visit on Tuesday together with the British High Commissioner and the French Ambassador, and we were very pleased to see the excellent work that the Institute is doing in order to help farmers to be more productive, in order to help farmers to have access to strains of sugarcane which are, as I say, more resistant to disease, which produce more sugar. And looking at the results, looking at the export figures and production figures for last year, things are certainly going very well in the right direction. But there's a lot to do before 2017, and we stand ready to provide support to the industry to help it to become more competitive.
Joshua?
Do you think the Fiji sugar industry will be ready come 2017 to be on that level playing field?
I think it's a very good sign that the industry is very aware of the challenge. There's a lot of work to do, but I think the industry can well be ready. But there is some way to go in order to be able to really meet the prices, which probably will reduce quite a lot in 2017. But everybody, I think, is very conscious of 2017. There is a big challenge there. So I think that augurs very well for the work that needs to be done. But a lot does need to be carried out.
If we were to put things into perspective, what sort of competitors or what sort of European suppliers would Fiji be competing with, given that our industry is at a certain stage right now? There needs to be reform, there needs to be more investment, whereas I would assume that the other sugar providers are better established and better resourced. Is that an accurate assessment?
Well, the competitors in the market will really be the domestic European sugar beet producers, who are well set up in Europe. But I think that Fiji does have an advantage, which is fair trade as well. I mean, fair trade, the fair trade mark on sugar. I think it's only Fiji which exports fair trade sugar to the UK. And so all fair trade sugar sold in the UK is coming from Fiji. Fair trade guarantees that there are certain, let's say, procedures in place in order for the sugar to be produced. And you can get a price advantage by selling fair trade sugar. So there is an advantage there, which a lot of sugar manufacturers, sugar producers, cane farmers take advantage of. And I think that's something also that can be built on.
But the reality still remains that the other competitors are sort of, let's say, heavyweights compared to Fiji.
Yes, I can't hide the fact that it's going to be a more competitive market, which is why Fiji really needs to become more competitive in the way that it produces the sugar. I mean, Fiji has a good hand on the market. Fiji sugar is well known. There is a British company, Tate & Lyle, which buys for the moment all of Fiji's sugar, or the vast majority of it, most years. So there are relations which will continue, I'm sure, and which it will be possible to build on.
Ambassador, I note you mentioned assistance in agriculture. Now we're looking
Yeah.
at, of course, diversification in that sector. We cannot just rely on sugar
No.
anymore. What is specifically you're looking at to help in our government with in terms of where your assistance will go?
Well, we're talking to the Ministry of Agriculture at the moment. I don't want to preempt the results of our discussions, but I think you've put your finger on it. It's really diversification of agriculture, so providing farmers with let's say technology, with access to new crops, to train them to grow new crops. And I think we've already seen quite a few good success stories in the sugar belt. And not that sugarcane farmers have been abandoning sugar, but they have been able to develop additional crops as well to supplement incomes. And I think we saw when I was in the West on Tuesday with my European Union colleagues, we were able to visit Friend, an NGO which has done a lot of work in the sugar belt, and I think they have really been instrumental in helping sugarcane farmers to develop additional crops. They're making chutneys, they're making jams, they're growing crops which previously they were not able to do. But I think there are a lot of opportunities to do this outside the sugar belt as well, which is why we're talking to the Ministry of Agriculture at the moment.
Yeah, Ambassador, we're going to have to take another break at this moment. We'll be back after this short break. Welcome back to the show. We're speaking with the European Union Ambassador to the Pacific and Fiji, Andrew Jacobs. Joshua, I'll give you the first question.
Obviously, climate change is a topical issue at the moment. How much is EU engaged in Fiji and the Pacific on this issue?
It's one of our big priorities in terms of our regional support to provide particularly the means to local communities to adapt and to mitigate against climate change. And we have 2 or 3 ongoing programs, particularly implemented by the SBC, by the Secretary of the Pacific Community, and also by GIZ, which are working around the Pacific. And it's clear that in the Pacific, we have 3 of the most vulnerable countries in the world. And unfortunately, Fiji is not one of them, although I know that there are relocations of villages going on in Fiji as well. But Tuvalu, Kiribati and the Marshall Islands, these atoll countries, their very existence is threatened by climate change. So we're working very closely with the Pacific in order to try to help local communities to cope with this challenge. And this is a very, very important year as far as climate change goes. In Paris in December, there is COP21, which is the conference of the parties which are signatories to the United Nations climate change framework. And at COP21, we consider that it's very important that all countries in the world agree to legally binding emissions targets. In other words, that everyone agrees that there have to be targets for everyone to reduce their harmful emissions in order to tackle climate change. And there we have, I think, a very good strategic alliance together with the Pacific Island countries. I think the European Union and the Pacific states really see eye to eye on the need for these legally binding targets. It's critical that we get all countries in the world to sign up to this ambition, because we're not going to get many more chances on this. So we hope that in December in Paris we're really going to see a breakthrough, and that everybody around the world commits to reducing emissions. And certainly the Pacific Island countries have been in no way to blame for climate change. It's the industrial countries. But it's good to see also that Pacific countries are leading by example by introducing renewable energy. And we've been working with a number of Pacific countries on that, helping to bring in solar panels. And I think it's a very strong message to the international community that our Pacific countries, we didn't cause the climate change, but we are threatened by it, and we are putting in place means to generate electricity, to generate energy from sources which are not harmful for the environment. So I think the Pacific countries are in a very strong position in terms of negotiation, but clearly they're also very vulnerable, and we can see the effects of climate change. In Fiji, when we see that villages have to relocate because the sea is rising.
There have been these global meetings in previous years. All the world leaders have gotten together. We're talking about presidents from the American continent, whatnot, and all the big names. And what's come out after a day, 2 days, or a week of meetings is that nothing has been achieved.
Mm.
It has been an exercise in futility because there hasn't been a commitment made, a legally binding commitment.
Yes.
With the EU stand this time around, well, I believe there has been a similar stand in previous years, but there is more of a strategic alliance from what you say. Do you believe that there will be a legally binding agreement to come out? Because this has been talked about for a lot of years.
I'm optimistic, and I know a lot of world leaders are more optimistic than they have been than they were a few months ago. I think the last meeting in Lima, and I know that Fiji was a very active participant in the meeting in Lima. I think that really set the framework, did a lot of groundwork for an agreement in Paris. But yeah, I can't pretend that the negotiations are going to be easy. And one issue that is on the table and does have to be negotiated is how to differentiate among the different countries. Do developing countries, let's say, benefit from different targets to developed ones? And there are a lot of discussions that need to be had. But I think that there is a certain increase in optimism than as opposed to some months ago. President Anote Tong of Kiribati, who is, as you know, a very vocal advocate of climate change action, was in Brussels 3 weeks ago. He met our High Representative for Foreign Policy, and I know that he told her that he was optimistic that Paris would really see a big breakthrough. I know that there have been a lot of disappointments. You're right, there have been a lot of meetings which haven't really delivered the results that are needed. But I mean, our message is we're not going to get too many more chances at getting it right. So let's be optimistic, but let's push together to try to make sure that we get what we want and what the world needs in Paris.
The reality for us in Fiji is right now there are 3 villages that have been relocated.
Yes.
There's a school in Lao that is going to be relocated, and 800 communities in total, coastal communities, are at risk as of today. Does this dawn on the carbon-emitting industrialized nations? Do they realize the reality that the Pacific is facing?
I think there is more work that needs to be done to make people aware in the industrialized countries of the challenges that Pacific Island countries and the most vulnerable countries are facing. It's something that we're very active in doing. This year is the European Year for Development. It's the year when we are trying to make our citizens, our taxpayers in Europe, more aware of what the European Union is doing in terms of development cooperation. We do a lot of work in climate change around the world, and particularly in the Pacific, and that's an opportunity to inform European Union citizens of what the challenges are and what the reality is for those countries which are really very badly affected by climate change.
Why is it important for the European Union to continue to support climate change mitigation programs in the region?
It is undoubtedly a big priority for us because climate change is a real threat to communities, and we will continue to put resources into that. I think we can be successful by giving the means to local communities to adapt the way in which they live because of climate change. I think there have been sometimes projects in the past which have been sort of invented at a desk somewhere in Brussels or New York. I think the priority really is making sure that the communities themselves are in charge of what they need to do. They know what the challenges are. They know the local circumstances. I know that in Fiji there are a lot of villages which are at risk and may well have to relocate. But I know that the villages themselves are very much involved in the decision making. I think that's the right way forward.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's time for another break. We'll be back shortly. Pulonaka, and welcome back to the show. We are speaking tonight with the Ambassador for the European Union, Mr. Andrew Jacobs. There's been a wide range of discussions and we've spoken about issues across a number of sectors. Now, in this segment, we'd like to touch on education. Mr. Ambassador, there's been a lot of talk about how the EU is re-engaging with Fiji, and there's so much that can be done for us after a lapse of a few years. So far as education is concerned, I believe the European Union is looking at having Fijians go to Europe to study.
Yeah, we have a program called Erasmus Plus, which is designed to provide opportunities for students, particularly postgraduate students, to go to Europe to study. You know, it's a program which has been operational for some years, and there have been Fijian students in Portugal, in France, I think in Poland, Czech Republic. There's been some take-up, but we really are encouraging more of it. We're organizing an event, I think it's next week, at the Alliance Française, to make people more aware of what Erasmus Plus offers in terms of opportunity. I mean, we firmly believe that by studying abroad for a period of time, a student can really broaden his or her outlook. They will have many more, let's say, opportunities, networking, really will have the opportunity to open their minds to the world. Erasmus is a program which was established in Europe 20 odd years ago, and now it has become normal for a European student who may come from France or the UK to spend, let's say, 1 year of study in another European Union member state. And we opened this up a few years ago to the world, made it a global program, and we hope that there will be more uptake from Fiji and from the rest of the Pacific. It really is a life changer to be able to go and study abroad, and Erasmus Plus is the vehicle that we use. We're working with the University of the South Pacific. We're working with Fiji National University and Uni-Fiji as well to try to generate more awareness of this big opportunity. And this is, as I said, European Year for Development. This month, each month of the year has a different theme. February's theme is education. So we're really focusing on generating more awareness about what we have to offer in the education field. Next month it's women and girls, so watch this space. There'll be a lot of activities there during March focusing on women and girls in development.
Sure.
These the programs that identified for further educational studies in terms of graduate programs, do you specifically look at what's needed in a country in terms of the programs that you'll be offering?
The programs really function on the basis of universities working together. So it's really a question of universities in Fiji being in touch with counterparts in Europe, and then the European Union's role is to finance these exchanges. But I know that the Fijian universities already have good networks in different European Union countries, and I think it's a question of building on those and planning programs together which involve the exchange of students. It's certainly not for us to decide the best way for universities to cooperate. It will depend on what subject areas they're working on, what their focus is, what sort of perhaps exchanges they may need in terms of academic staff going to Europe or coming to Fiji. And I should say that we don't just want Fijian students to go to Europe, we want more European students to come here. This is a two-way program. And there are very good opportunities here for higher education, and that also should be a result of our efforts in promoting Erasmus Plus and these student exchange opportunities.
That's right.
What's the feedback been like so far from students who are currently part of the program, and those who have graduated from it?
Very positive, and we're looking forward to hearing next week when we're promoting Erasmus Plus. Directly from some of the students who have come back from Europe. I think universally they are very pleased with the experience, and they feel that this has offered them huge opportunities. If you come back from a foreign country, you have new experiences to offer employers. You have new experiences, new skills to sell, and I think certainly it's a program which is proving to be very successful.
The focus right now in Fiji, at least on a tertiary level, is to have students focus on a certain field
Yes.
where there is a lack in Fiji.
Yeah.
And we're even talking about TVET, vocational
Yeah.
education. Are there possibilities for that as well? Because we have students who go into management and business and accounting and medicine, but apparently the real shortage for us right now are plumbers, carpenters, these blue-collar jobs. Is it possible?
And Erasmus Plus does focus on tertiary education and university education rather than technical and vocational training. I mean, it's an area which I know, does require growth. It does require investment, but Erasmus Plus is not the right vehicle for that.
Research and development, is there a lot of focus on that?
Yes, definitely, and there are opportunities which are being taken up between Europe and the Pacific for researchers to work together. To really share information and to carry out joint experiments and so on. Yes.
Mr. Ambassador, I just think you mentioned about women and girls, the focus for the European Union next month. Well, what is particularly your interest in that area?
Well, one of the issues that I think that but I know that the Fiji government is also concerned about is violence against women. I think certainly in Fiji and around the Pacific there is a problem. We've been working with a number of NGOs to try to get the message across that violence against women is totally unacceptable. And I'm pleased that there has also been the zero tolerance campaign of the Fiji government. And even in the 2 years that I've been here, I've seen that violence against women is much more readily talked about in the media and in society. It's becoming, let's say, much more acceptable to speak of these things. And I think the more awareness that there is generated of the problem, the more it becomes unacceptable, the more men realize that beating up their wives, their partners, is something which is totally taboo. There is more work to do. But I think during our European Year for Development month on women and girls, it will certainly be one thing that we will be focusing on, some of the work that we've done in this field. So both violence against women, but empowering women. We've been working with FemLink, we've been working with Fiji Women's Crisis Centre and so on various projects, and it is an important area, I think.
It's time for another break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to For the Record. Our guest tonight is the European Union Ambassador to Fiji and the Pacific, Mr. Andrew Jacobs. Now drawing to the end of the show for this weekend, but we'll carry on with discussions. Ambassador, the Economic Partnership Agreement has been an issue of a lot of talk, a lot of debate and negotiations with Fiji and on a regional level with the Pacific. The latest development so far as Fiji is concerned is that we have in the interim agreed to the EPA. What does this now mean for Fiji?
Well, the interim economic partnership agreement is being applied at the moment. We're looking forward to it being ratified by Parliament, I hope in the next few months. But the interim economic partnership agreement does set down the conditions for preferential market access to the European market for Fiji products. I'm pleased that there are colleagues coming from Brussels, in fact, next week for meetings with the Ministry of Trade, for meetings with the private sector, really to make people more aware of what opportunities this agreement represents in terms of the European market. I mean, we're very pleased that this agreement is now in place. And there is, as you've mentioned, a comprehensive economic partnership agreement that has been under negotiation for some time between the European Union and the Pacific. The European Union is still committed to working towards an agreement. There are a few stumbling blocks, fisheries conservation and so on. But meanwhile, I'm pleased that as far as Fiji is concerned, there is an agreement already in place. But we will continue to negotiate the regional comprehensive agreement. But as I say, the interim agreement is there for Fiji as well as for Papua New Guinea. There's been
this sense that the Pacific is running out of time for negotiations.
There is no deadline for the negotiations. No, I mean they have been going on a long time, and we would hope that they will draw to a close as soon as possible, but there's no deadline.
Should we anticipate an agreement by Fiji after the meeting with the Brussels team?
Well, no, the agreement is already there. The agreement came into force, I think, in October last year. It does need to be ratified, but it's being provisionally applied. So the agreement is there. It was negotiated several years ago. So the visit from our colleagues in Brussels is really to discuss its implementation with the government and with different partners.
Would this team also be meeting with the private sector, potential
Absolutely.
exporters?
Yes. Yes.
And where is the focus? I mean, is it open to anyone, or because we also have to look at volume of trade for Fiji?
Well, we've been talking to the Ministry of Trade, we've been talking to the Chamber of Commerce and the Employers' Federations about what sectors of industry would be most interested. And I think there will be meetings with those exporting, sugar, obviously, but also seafood, various foodstuffs which have the potential, have a potential on the European market. But we'll be sure to let's say, include meetings with those representatives of industries where Europe does present market opportunity.
Joshua?
A few years ago, there was a bit of an issue with fish exports to the EU and whether they met EU regulations. How much of an issue is it at the moment?
It's no longer an issue. It's true that the European Commission gave what we call a yellow card to Fiji for illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. In other words, we felt that more could be done in order to ensure that illegal fishing was not happening in Fijian waters, and we had excellent response, excellent collaboration with the government, with the Fisheries Ministry, and that yellow card is no longer there. And I think there was a real joint wish to see IUU, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, the history in Fijian waters, and the government has taken action, and certainly there were no consequences of this yellow card. A yellow card can turn into a red card, as it has done for a couple of countries recently, but no, Fiji, we work very well together, I think, to resolve the problems.
Ambassador, the entire premise of EPA negotiations has been, and this has even been said by the Fijian government, that the idea is to have a comprehensive agreement that benefits the entire region and the Pacific, and negotiations have been carried out on a regional level.
Yes.
Now, PNG agreed to the interim agreement, and the next in line was Fiji. So what changed? I mean, we went from a Pacific focus to a specific country focus. What changed?
Well, no, there's been no change of focus. The idea of the interim EPA, as the title suggests, were to provide, let's say, a route to a comprehensive agreement, and we were pleased to be able to negotiate interim agreements with those countries which wanted to move quickly in terms of agreeing trade conditions with the European Union. Having an interim agreement doesn't mean that there is less focus on getting a regional agreement. But if these interim agreements hadn't been in place, then neither Fiji nor PNG would have been able to, let's say, enjoy certain market conditions.
Sure.
You mentioned the implementation of the agreement. Looking at the regional perspective, or individual countries like Fiji and PNG, are there some challenges that we face that the European Union could probably assist us with in terms of implementing what's in the agreement?
Yes. I think the visit from colleagues in Brussels next week will be helpful in identifying what challenges there may be. And we are currently preparing our new regional cooperation program for the Pacific. We have 166 million euros available, which must be something approaching 400 million Fiji dollars. That's for our regional cooperation program. And a big part of that program will focus on private sector development. It will focus on regional economic integration. And with some of those funds, we will be able, with different Pacific countries, including Fiji, to work with the private sector on helping it to prepare better for export markets. So yes, we do have some means available to help ensure that Fiji Fijian companies can take best advantages of what European market opportunities exist.
Ambassador, just drawing to the close of the show for this evening, I'd like to pick your brains about whether there were some adjustment pains in re-engaging with the Fiji government after elections because there was an 8-year gap. Was it easy to come back to the table and begin discussions, or did it take some adjusting too?
Well, there was never a gap in discussing with the Fiji government. I mean, we continued to have meetings. We continued to have a very constructive relationship. I think the difference now since the elections is that we have been able to lift the restrictions on development cooperation, and we look forward to engaging in a very good political dialogue with the government. But no, the transition has not been difficult because there wasn't really a time when we were not talking. So I'm pleased that there was a strong base to build on.
Ambassador, thank you very much for coming on our show tonight. That's unfortunately the end of the segment for this weekend. Our many thanks to Ambassador Andrew Jacobs from the European Union. Also, our panelists tonight, Shirian Wilson from Fiji TV and Joshua Tuere from Fiji Sun. Remember, if you have any comments or questions, you can email us for the record at fbc.com.fj. That's the show for tonight. We'll be back again next weekend. Good night.